Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Greenproofing, your opportunity to hear from sustainability professionals and how they're making change in the world and scaling verified ecological impact. I'm super excited today to have Benoît Clément. He's an old friend, a colleague, somebody I have a lot of respect for how he showed up in the space and the way he's navigated a increasingly complex and exciting space that we call climate finance. And he's here today to share maybe a little look back on what he's been seeing and give us a look into the future at what is happening at the intersection of climate finance, of AI, of fintech, and where we can expect to see some major changes that will help move capital off the sidelines and into verified impact. So with that said, and no further ado, Benoît, welcome. So good to see you, a fellow Central Coaster here on the West Coast. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, David. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So, Benoît, as I do with everybody, right away, I want to know, why are you here? Like, what is what pulled you into becoming a sustainability professional? And I know, you've seen a lot of different different parts of this space. But what pulled you in here to begin with? Anything in your life history or something that drives you to show up here every day?
Yeah, thanks, David. So pain brings me here. I didn't grow up in one of the wealthier families, and my socioeconomic status drove me into deciding to work in the field of finance. I didn't want to have problems with money. I decided as an adult. So I spent 7 years working in retail banking and consumer lending, and this is when I found myself experiencing a whole lot of physical pain from being at a desk 10 hours a day and staring at computers. I was realizing that I was just kind of continuing to perpetuate this wealth divide and was really unfulfilled with the work that I was doing. And this led to a quarter life crisis where I decided to leave this field and do some soul searching. I went through different farms, eco villages, and intentional communities where I was trying to find a deeper sense of purpose. And this is where I started learning about sustainable farming, regenerative agriculture, learning about homesteading and more sustainable lifestyles. Through those experiences, I needed to start earning money again. And so I started looking at ways where I could contribute my different, both business, finance, and management skills in ways that would contribute to environmental or social programs and projects. This led me to work in a variety of different contracts with local and federal governments, for-profits, nonprofits, startups, and corporates in different fields, from wildfire, disaster recovery, regenerative agriculture, watershed restoration, and reforestation. These different skill sets started to lend themselves more and more to an area that was circulating around finance and technology. And, through these experiences, I found myself on 4 different occasions having to evacuate from wildfires in California, where I've spent a lot of my life, and running from these fires and just watching the chaos continue to become more exacerbated year after year. Just really became a driving force for me, wanting to help scale climate finance and help us address the climate crisis that we find ourselves in. Even just recently, in the house that I'm sitting in now, we had 185,000 acres, or what is that in hectares, probably around 80 or so thousand hectares burn recently, just really coming close to the house. And it was just, again, like reminded of my purpose of why I'm here. And this is, thank you for this opportunity to share today.
My pleasure. Thanks for sharing that too. That's appreciate the history, the pain, and I'm in a weird way grateful that pain brought you to us, because you've been a leader in the space, whether people know your name or not. My most recent interaction with you was through the Vera community, and Vera, who has anchored the voluntary carbon markets for years. You played a critical role there in helping scale Vera, navigate an increasingly complex space. As complex as nature is, right? And Vera is really stood tall, trying to sort this out to help bring as much capital off the sidelines and into verified impact. And I always appreciated the way you showed up. And when Vera had bullseye on its back at times, when it was the hero at times. Can you just give us a brief understanding of from Vera to now, how you've seen this space evolve, right? You're continue to sit on an edge. It feels like even after your time at Vera. Can you give us a little sense of things from the past couple of years, what's moved and what you're looking at just over the hill?
Yeah. So when I just joined Vera, there's this huge push for tokenization of assets, tokenizing carbon credits, a lot of excitement and movement around Web3 technologies, at least from some parties in the space. Vera at the time was looking to understand these technologies more. And so I got to represent Vera and do research in these areas and look at applications of blockchain technology and tokenization of assets and see what potential use cases these could be serving in a helpful way. We saw how a lot of that excitement, I think, just kind of reached a little bit of a cooling period. There were other challenges that were brought up in this market around integrity and quality that kind of took more prioritization. And a lot of this really hinges on project data, which is kind of funny how a lot of this is actually going to circle us back to these technologies in just a second. But while also doing a lot of market and user research on early stage project financing, I came to see how these different technologies could actually be used in a way to actually accelerate climate finance and increasing the auditability and the bankability of these projects. And I'll share more about what those things mean and how these technologies can help with that in a moment. Towards the end of my time at Vera, I was really fortunate to be able to spend time working with one of the larger financial institutions on the planet, building a whole new environmental asset registry or carbon registry on blockchain that was essentially going to have carbon credits being issued within a financially regulated ecosystem. At the same time, we were looking at how we could leverage partnerships with Web3 technology providers that would be able to help create audit trails of project data, project performance, in a way that would accelerate project reviews, the certified impact verification of those projects by the standards bodies such as Vera. And we were building out those partnerships, for example, with Hedera, which was largely reinvigorated after some conversations we had at COP27. It's really exciting developing these technologies and these partnerships during my time at Vera, and even today as I continue to work with parties in this space. We're digitizing methodologies. We are looking at ways of using tokenization and blockchain to both create these immutable audit trails and also allow for that to support financial instruments that are tied to that project performance, that creates more confidence in the quality and the data for the different investors, the buyers that are using these financial instruments, creating greater confidence in their purchases and their investments and de-risking these projects and making them more readily investable or bankable. I'll share very quickly that I spent some time with Denominator. We were building a pre-compliance software where it was essentially helping structure unstructured project data, matching it to digitized methodologies, and helping renewable energy projects be able to access environmental attribute certificates such as biogas certificates or clean hydrogen certificates. It would also enable them to be compliant with compliance frameworks such as CBAM. So these new types of revenue streams that renewable energy project developers or commodity producers and exporters could access makes these projects not only more bankable, but allows them to replicate and scale in their size. Right now, working with Evercity, we're also using these technologies, blockchain and tokenization of assets, to issue things like carbon forwards or prepayment financial instruments At COP30, we're going to be demonstrating green bonds, sustainability linked green bonds. The KPIs are going to be fed by the project performance data, which is also all going to be on chain. So a lot of exciting technologies that we're deploying in this space, and how it's addressing a lot of the issues that we see today, both from the speed of verification, that we need to be able to shrink the time to market for these projects to be able to get to credit issuance. And we also need to de-risk these projects from the investors and buyers perspective to make them more readily investable or bankable. And so, I'll pause there, but this is a very exciting time in space to be in. We haven't even started talking about AI yet, but
and that's where I want to go next. So great. Thank you. Teed me up perfectly. Thank you, Benoît. So AI, in some, I'd say, I'm getting some blockchain vibes early on, right? Blockchain ripe with possibility, energy intensive. Is it a boogeyman? Is it a salve to how we scale ecological regeneration? And AI on the scene, clearly ubiquitous at this point already, and becoming already irreplaceable in a lot of ways for people and their lives and the way they do business. Now, let's jump into climate finance and let's talk about verified impact. Let's talk about how to bring capital off the sidelines. You're riding a now the edge, you've ridden the edge of blockchain, and now you're riding the edge of AI. Can you give us a peek into how you are applying AI in your own practice, working with your projects like Denominator, or how you seeing it being applied in the climate finance space? And similarly, give us a peek over the horizon of the application of AI and how you see it as a critical tool to bring the next $1 trillion into ecological impact.
Yeah. So while I was at Denominator, we were using artificial intelligence. We created several different agents. We had agents for structuring unstructured project data. We had agents for digitizing methodology. We had agents for running stopgap analyses between these two different data architectures to essentially give pre-compliance reports. So you'd have one agent that's basically able to ingest unstructured project data. A lot of the times this looks like spreadsheets, PDFs, different kinds of document types that are not readily comparable or compliant with a methodology framework. The AI agent that was responsible for digitizing methodologies would create a digital blueprint of those methodologies. Oftentimes when we look at these methodologies, they're just hundreds of pages of PDF pages, and it's very difficult to digest and to quickly discern whether or not the data for the project that we're assessing is compliant with the methodology. Is it able to issue any kinds of credits or environmental attribute certificates? This was essentially accelerating the process by being able to rapidly architect methodologies in a digital format with one AI agent, and then also being able to ingest data, structure that data, and then having another AI agent that can run a compliance analysis and tell you where it's in conformity or not in conformity. And that would allow for project developers to quickly make pivots, knowing almost in real time, like, hey, we have to make adjustments here, here, or here in order to be compliant with this methodology before we submit it for validation or for verification review. This also helps auditors be able to find issues a whole lot faster rather than having to start completely from scratch. They're already starting with the foundation. What was really cool about the platform that Denominator is creating is there's this connection point where both the project developers and the auditors are able to interface through the same platform. So the data that they're looking at, the messages, it's all centralized. You don't have to have like different email inboxes and different pieces of data or documents stored in different places, and you're wondering like who shared what, sent what, where. Like it's all in one place. You've got traceability of the messages and the activities that have been done. It also makes it a whole lot easier for the standards bodies or the certification bodies to be able to complete their certification reviews, because you're creating this like this central source of truth, but all of that data still on blockchain, but leveraging artificial intelligence to rapidly structure. It wasn't getting rid of the human touch. while I think artificial intelligence in a lot of ways is incredible, you still need to have that human involved last mile delivery where it's checking to make sure that the logic is sound and that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So it was really fascinating to see how we were applying it in that sense. On Evercity's side, we're looking at seeing how we're able to have the key performance indicators of the sustainability linked bonds and stuff like that rapidly matched to the project data that's happening to influence the coupon rates of the bonds. So the more successful that a project is performing, the better debt servicing experiences that they're going to be able to have. So we're rewarding good performance of projects with better debt, essentially. So
That's a huge unlock in the space. That's a huge unlock.
Yeah. So, and these are some of the ways where it's being applied in these different contexts. Yeah, it's. I feel like we're just starting to scratch the surface. It's just wild to see like what's happened when ChatGPT kind of blew up 2.5 years ago, and like where it is today. And not using just ChatGPT, but I mean a lot of other different kinds of artificial intelligence models and structures is. We're in for some really interesting experiences in the years to come, I feel.
Well, so help us look into the Benoît crystal ball a bit. Again, I appreciate your forging ahead on behalf of this space in a lot of ways. To fellow sustainability professionals, where should we be peeking into in where the innovations lie, but also where market demand is trending? Are we still in the credit space? Is it claims? Is it reporting? Is it all of the above? And then, things that we should be anticipating as a movement around bringing capital into verified ecological impact. Anything that just is top of mind for you right now that we should be tracking?
Yeah. There's going to continue to be a really large focus on accelerating the time to market for projects to reaching credit or certificate issuance. There's just a massive amount of demand for that to take place. Anything that can shorten the time that it takes for projects to have their audits completed, and all the technology infrastructure that's supporting that goal. And then also just a massive amount of effort and initiative around making projects more readily bankable. This is de-risking projects for investors and buyers. This is going to also include things like the coupling of insurance products in this space. I'm hoping that we're going to see less and less use of things like buffer pools. I think buffer pools work if they are sitting within an insurance company's product solution, but not buffer pools within the context of like a standard or certification body. So the carbon pool, for example, holding on to extra credits where they can exchange like for like, or other carbon insurance product solutions that are able to address things like permanence risk. Zooming back out and looking at voluntary carbon market and how like these spaces are shifting. Actually, shout out to Rich Gilmore, like pushing this idea that we're shifting from a voluntary carbon market to maybe more of a verified carbon market. We're starting to see more and more overlap with compliance markets. I think today more than 80 to 90% of the global population lives within a jurisdiction that has some kind of carbon pricing mechanism, whether it's something like the ETS or other kinds of carbon compliance frameworks. We're going to continue to see these overlaps and integrations take place. And so I would anticipate that sometime, maybe within the next 5 to 10 years, that overlap is going to become so big that essentially verified is going to be sitting within compliance, essentially. I also think that there's going to be a requirement for the assets that we're trading in this space to become increasingly regulated. This is good from the perspective that it makes it easier for more traditional capital to come from mature capital and financial markets into this space. Frankly, there's just been like not enough regulation in this space that's made it really uncomfortable for banks, financial institutions, et cetera, to be able to move into this space more readily. And we're also starting to see integrations of like Web3 technologies with these major financial institutions. For example, the carbon registry that was built with this financial institution on chain was like a huge signal. There was just recently an announcement that Swift is now piloting stable coins and blockchain usage. So, I mean, this is where we're heading into a really interesting time right now. And it's all about capital efficiency. It's about project auditability and time to market, and making sure that these assets are de-risked as much as possible, which is going to be largely supported by the technologies that make these values realizable. So it's a very exciting time.
Thank you for that alpha, Benoît. Benoît, tie us out here. You were closing up this episode of Greenproofing. Thank you again for being here. So, 2 questions. What is bringing you hope right now? And what are you grateful for?
Yeah, what's bringing me a lot of hope right now is it's honestly a lot of my colleagues in this space, all the different parties that are coming together and choosing to use these technologies for meaningful, purpose-oriented initiatives. When I think about the legacy that we'd like to leave on this planet, whether it's for our kids, having a better world, or the animals, it just feels like this is becoming more readily attainable with the tools that we have in our disposition. I've been of the view that we've always had a lot of the tools and the mechanisms. Granted, those tools and mechanisms may have been a little bit more archaic, but it's becoming like the amount of excuses we have to not do this are just seem to be rapidly shrinking with our technological capabilities. So I'm just really hoping to see that it's like, as technology continues to make a lot of things possible in ways that weren't previously, that we just decide to implement the kinds of policies that are going to allow for these technologies to help support us in this transition to a more green, regenerative global economy. This is where I'm hopeful, is seeing how all of our colleagues are applying these technologies in a way that is moving us in that direction. These technologies also obviously have darker applications for how they could be used, but it's nice to be with people that are so passionate about preserving humanity, nature, and working together collaboratively to create a more peaceful and equitable world.
Love it. Yeah. And a gratitude as we part.
Yeah. Thanks.
Do you have something you're grateful for? Actually, one more thing.
I'm honestly really grateful for just the relationships, the people. I think that it's all about how we're able to come together and work on these solutions. Without our patience, our compassion, without gratitude and respect for one another, it's really difficult for us to make any meaningful advancements as a species and to leave any kind of real meaningful impact. And so I'm honestly just really grateful for a lot of the people that I've worked with and collaborated over the years, and really excited for what is to continue moving here forward.
Wonderful. Well, with that attitude of gratitude, we're going to tie up this episode of Greenproofing. Benoît Clément, thank you so much for joining us. Please reach out to Benoît on LinkedIn or otherwise. Always an incredible resource for all of us in this space. So with that, thank you, Benoît, and be well.
Thank you, David. Thank you all.